Okay, Begin became a minister without portfolio. This appointment finally shattered the wall of isolation that had surrounded Begin's movement and Begin personally for so long. Begin served as a member of the National Unity Government headed by Eshkol for 3 years, from the outbreak of the Six-Day War on, and it was Begin together with Yigal Allon who initiated the debate in which the historic decision was made to liberate East Jerusalem, a move that even Uri Avneri praised in his Knesset speech in June 27th of 1967. In August of 1970, Begin resigned along with the other Gahal members from the government, which was then headed by Golda Meir. Following Eshkol's passing, on a matter of principle, he refused to accept the Rogers Plan, which included a commitment to withdraw from Judea and Samaria. Opposition to the reparations agreement with Germany. Begin's rhetorical skills and his fiery speeches and pathos riveted his listeners. Even when the content of his words and the vehemence could be anticipated, his critics accused him of being a demagogue, but all agreed that rather than being a politician of narrow interests, he was a national statesman for whom the good of the nation and the country took precedence over everything else. Consequently, when visiting abroad, he meticulously refrained from even a whisper of criticism about the government. Despite accusations from his political rivals that he was a dangerous man who supported hooliganism, only once did he stretch the boundaries of the rule of law to the limit. In January of 1952, while the Knesset was debating the agreement with Germany regarding the payment of reparations by Germany to Israel for the Holocaust, Begin addressed an angry crowd demonstrating close to the Knesset, which was later forcibly dispersed by the police after he had left. Before the tens of thousands that had gathered in Zion Square, many of them Holocaust survivors, and not all Herut members, Begin said, "When you fired your cannon at us," in reference to the shelling of the Altalena, "I gave the order no. Today I will give an order yes. We know that you will show us no mercy, but this time we too will show no mercy to those that sell the blood of our brethren and our parents. This will be a war of life and death." In the Knesset plenum, M.K. Begin hurled harsh words at Ben-Gurion in response to a slur by the Prime Minister. When he refused to retract his remarks, he was barred from all Knesset sessions for 3 months. Later, Begin admitted his failure in the matter of the German reparation payments, but added, "I would not have been an immeasurable humiliation of the Jewish people if no one had arisen from among us to express opposition to that agreement, which, as we warned, became an agreement of rehabilitation and appeasement of the German people, the very nation that murdered 6 million Jews. If I contributed to this opposition from then to this day, I am proud of that." 8 consecutive election campaigns dealt Begin one disappointment after another. Although the support for the bloc of parties he headed kept growing, and the disparity in the number of votes received by his party and the alignment increasingly diminished, he never lost optimism and never felt despair. As he liked to say, one can lose an election 20 times and win the 21st time. But Begin did not have to wait quite that long for victory. Begin invested an enormous physical energy in every election campaign. He gave hundreds of speeches, appeared at numerous election meetings, and met with many varied audiences. On more than one occasion, tens of thousands gathered to hear a captivating speaker that he was when he appeared in public places, such as Maghrabi Square in Tel Aviv and Menorah Square in Jerusalem. At such gatherings, enthusiastic cries could be heard from the crowd, Begin for Prime Minister. The political reversal. Menachem's Begin motto, "From the opposition to premiership," became a reality on May 17th of 1977, a short time before his 64th birthday. The night following the closing of the polls was the greatest night of Menachem Begin's life. He remained at home to watch the results on television until 2 o'clock in the morning, agreeing to come to the movement's headquarters in Beit Jabotinsky only after he was convinced beyond any doubt that he had really won the election. Seemingly restrained, his words at 3:30 in the morning were stirring. Today is the beginning of a turning point in the history of the Jewish people and the Zionist movement. Unlike anything we have seen for 46 years, since the 17th Congress in 1931, the 17th Zionist Congress in 1931, when Ze'ev Jabotinsky proposed to declare that the goal of Zionism is the establishment of a Jewish state in our lifetime. In the name of his principles, and in order to realize those principles, his followers fought to liberate the nation and aspired patiently and out of complete belief in democracy to change our state. We have gotten to where we are today by means of a ballot box, and only by means of the ballot box. They came based on faithful covenant with the students of Chaim Weizmann, Menachem Ushishkin, Abba Hillel Silver, and David Ben-Gurion. The internal political upheaval in Israel, even if expected, surprised the citizens of the country that made it happen and stunned the world. Initially, the designated prime minister was portrayed in articles and newspapers reports as a terrorist, as a hardline fanatic with intransigent zealot. The British were especially upset by the results of the election and reluctant to forgive Begin for defeating them. On June 7th of 1977, President Aaron Katzir invested Begin with the task of forming the government. Immediately afterwards, Begin went to the Western Wall and read Psalms and kissed the stones. From there, he continued to the home of Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda Cook to receive his blessing. Menachem Begin presented his government to the Knesset on June 29th, and in his speech before the vote he said, "The voters placed in their trust in us, but we will not rest on our laurels. Know full well that the most difficult tests are still ahead of us. Because this is a new government, I would like to ask the Knesset and the nation to give us moral credit for at least the first year of its term." After reading out the government's basic guidelines, the hands were raised, 63 for, 53 against. Begin and the others swore an oath of allegiance as the cabinet ministers of Israel for the 19th government. Among the 53 MKs that opposed the new government were 15 members of the Daesh Party, with whom the coalition negotiations had failed. Despite that, the contacts continued with the country's third largest party, which played a major role in bringing the Likud to power. Begin even left 4 portfolios in his cabinet vacant until October 24th, when efforts finally met with success. Daesh joined the government, widening its base, making it, without exception of the national unity governments, the Israeli government based on the largest number of Knesset members ever. It would be 78 members, 63 and 15. Even before the new government was confirmed, the designated prime minister stirred up a furor and decided to appoint Moshe Dayan, who many people considered responsible for the tragic outcome of the Yom Kippur War, as his foreign minister. Begin touched off another furor. Even before the vote of confidence in his government, he declared the site of Elyon Moreh community. In the future, there will be many Elyon Morehs. And indeed, on a visit to Kidamim in February of 1981, Begin proclaimed, "I promised at the beginning of my term that there would be many Elyon Morehs," and they indeed arose. Today, lights can be seen at night in dozens of Jewish communities in Samaria. Within a short time, the new government won confidence and trust, especially after the new prime minister's first official visit to the United States as a guest of then President Jimmy Carter. A unique personal relationship developed between the two leaders who had never met before. Years later, however, it was learned that the president was suspicious of the prime minister, and in private meetings demonstrated hostility and even animosity towards Begin, who refused to halt the continued establishment of Jewish communities in Judea, Samaria, and then even Gaza, and prevented, in Carter's view, the creation of a Palestinian homeland. Despite this, it was said that there was chemistry between them. Begin especially captivated the heart of the American Jewish community. As one of its leaders explained, Begin is a Jew, and that is how he succeeded in winning the hearts of the American Jewry. After Israel has already sent to us talented military officers, politicians, and statesmen. Just as the public grew accustomed to the new government, it also grew accustomed to the new style inspired by Begin, demonstrable politeness, European manners, and Jewish expressions such as "with God's help" became frequent aspects of daily life. Menachem Begin slipped into his new role naturally, and it is true that I have been in the Prime Minister's office for only about 2 months, he said in August, but sometimes I feel as I have been working here for at least the last 10 years. The Peace Accord and the Nobel Prize. As the 6th Prime Minister of the State of Israel, Menachem Begin will be remembered first and foremost thanks to the event that culminated March 26th of 1979. On that day, the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, the first peace agreement ever signed between Israel and an Arab country, was signed on the White House lawn in Washington. It followed dramatic negotiations, which began with secret contacts held in Morocco between Moshe Dayan and Hassan Tahami. Continued during Begin's visit to Romania with his talks with President Nicolae Ceausescu, and when Egypt's President Anwar Sadat visited Israel. The Sadat initiative is closely tied to Begin's personality. Sadat, who heard good reports on Israel's new Prime Minister from Carter and from Ceausescu, realized that Menachem Begin was a strong leader and would be able to convince his people of the justice of his decisions. He recognized that Begin had a very clear view and that he was someone Sadat could trust, with whom he could reach an agreement. Only someone like Begin realized Sadat could make such a great concession in return for true peace. As someone for so many years had been vilified as a warmonger and a fanatic who believed in the policy of power, Menachem Begin certainly wanted history to remember him as a leader who brought peace to his nation, broken the circle of violence in the Middle East, and put an end to the bereavement of Israel. Anwar Sadat's declaration on November 9th of 1977, "I am willing to come to them, to their home, to the Knesset itself, and argue with them," was not left unanswered. In an appeal broadcast on the Egyptian people via the American television channel, Begin said, "Let us not say to one another, let it be a silent oath between our two nations, Egypt and Israel, no more war, no more bloodshed, no more threats, only peace, true peace forever." 1 week later, on Saturday night, November 19th, 1977, Begin received his former enemy at Ben Gurion Airport. In private talks held for 2 days of the historic visit, chemistry was created between the two leaders, and both agreed to no more war. Begin's peace plan, which was presented to Carter in Washington and Sadat in Cairo, triggered harsh criticism in Israel, especially in his own party, because it involved a return of most of the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, and negotiations for the autonomy of the Arabs in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. He told critics in Beirut, "I do not need a seal of approval for my loyalty to Eretz Yisrael, neither from Gush Emunim, nor from the movement of the greater land of Israel, or from certain people in the Beirut movement." He was criticized from the right by Professor Yuval Ne'iman, founder of Techiyah, who said, "In my darkest nightmares, I would never have imagined that Begin would reach that very same situation that he fought against his entire life." And from the left, the former Prime Minister of Yitzhak Rabin said, "Begin has an advantage, that as a Prime Minister he doesn't have Begin in the opposition." However, the growing friendship between Begin and Sadat did not prevent disagreements between them, and the negotiations did not go as smoothly as some had hoped.